Time now for an in-depth look at the market news this afternoon, and for that I'm joined on the line by Dr. Jun-sok, professor of economics at the Catholic University of Korea. Professor Young, thank you as always for coming on.
Happy to be here.
In the U.S., both Jerome Powell, Fed chairman, and Steve Mnuchin, Treasury Secretary, are under pressure to do more to prevent an even worse economic downturn. They're taking different approaches to the problem, it seems, according to what they said yesterday. What do you make of this situation, and what else should be done to save the American economy?
Okay, well, the Fed Chairman Powell has been saying something that's a lot different from what the Trump administration is advocating, but when both of them testified at the Congress at the same time on Monday, Chairman Powell seems to be being very careful in what he said so that he doesn't contradict the statements from President Trump and his administration too much. But basically, Fed Chairman Powell is advocating a lot more active fiscal policy by Congress, and he's also warning that this recession, because of the COVID virus, will last probably a long time. It'll probably last until at least the end of next year. So they're in for the long haul, but they can make the problem a lot less if Congress takes a more active approach, provides more funding to regional governments, state governments, and have a more keep on funding the unemployment insurance for the people who are lost their jobs by the coronavirus. But the Trump administration seems to be saying something that is different, which is that they should stop active funding to the state governments or reduce it. They should reduce the unemployment insurance, and things should go back to normal as quickly as possible. Mnuchin emphasized that the longer the economy is in a lockdown, the more difficult the economy will be to revive. So they are actively trying to get back to normal, even though a lot of epidemiologists are saying that this is too early. One thing that concerns me a lot is that the Republicans in U.S. Congress seem to be considering a waiver on liability for employers if their employees catch the coronavirus while working. And I think that's going to be very, very controversial. So the Fed and the Treasury, the Trump administration is coming at this from very different angles, but I think the Fed Chairman Powell is trying to do everything he can not to create too much friction between the Fed and the executive branch.
Well, partly because of those issues, stocks were down on Wall Street overnight, the Dow by about 1.5% and the Nasdaq by 0.5%. What's the story in the global markets?
Okay, well, that apparently was because of the announcement by Moderna, medical suppliers, medical research firm yesterday, saying that they had very good results from their vaccine research, but it turned out that today, or more accurately, very early this morning, Korea time, a lot of people questioned that research. It seems that only part of that research was revealed, and the research result was not good enough to satisfy a lot of specialists and scientists. So that created a lower market for the United States yesterday, their time. Now the problem seems to be that the market is fluctuating too much. The news from the Fed Chairman Powell also seemed to have played negatively into the market, because he said that the coronavirus recession may last longer than what people expect. So I think the market is still reacting very sensitively to the news, though it surprises me a little bit because this is not new news. It's actually old news. It should have been baked into the market, but every time someone comes up with a slightly optimistic statement or a slightly pessimistic statement, the market, at least in the United States, seems to be overreacting. So the United States market is still very, very sensitive to any kind of news that is being announced.
Well, now we saw yesterday that earnings by Korea's listed companies were cut in half in the first quarter. It seems that'll get even worse in Q2 when exports have taken a bigger hit. What's your outlook for the Korean financial markets?
Okay, well, an interesting thing I think happened today. Even though as you mentioned, the earnings report is not very good, KOSPI actually rose today, and I really expected the KOSPI to drop today because of the bad news in the United States. And when we look at how the KOSPI market rose today, it seems that the individual buyers who are responsible for keeping KOSPI relatively on a higher level, on a level of recovery, they actually sold more stocks, whereas foreigners who have been abandoning Korean stocks have now bought Korean stocks, and they were responsible for the market rise in KOSPI today. So one interesting possibility may be that they're looking at Korea as an alternative to U.S. market. When the U.S. market did badly yesterday, some of that money flowed into Korea. Now, if the U.S. investors are thinking about Korean market as an alternative to the U.S. market, then that means whenever U.S. market faces bad news, maybe it'll be good news for Korea, but we'll have to wait and see whether that pattern holds for KOSPI. Kosdaq, on the other hand, they've been having, I think, an incredible couple of weeks. They're now recovered beyond the levels of pre-coronavirus. They reached a level of what was the Kosdaq has reached the levels that they had last summer. They've gone beyond the pre-corona level, February levels, and they may actually hit year high in just a few weeks. I'm amazed at how well Kosdaq is doing. It's outpacing the Nasdaq market by quite a bit.
Quite a rally indeed. All right, Professor Young, we appreciate your insights. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you.